My time as a Steam Deck owner and now as a fully fledged PC guy, let's just say leaving console was the best decision. I've been on the console side for as long as I can remember. I didn't become fed up one day and decide to ditch console. For many, it's most likely going to be some absurd line that gets drawn, like the $80 games or Nintendo bricking consoles, something insane like that where you just can't justify it anymore. For me though, I feel like my gaming habits were naturally changing. I stumbled across a channel one night called Retro Gamecore, and this guy named Russ was reviewing this device that looked like a tiny Nintendo Switch, smaller than a Switch Lite. It was a device from some company called Retroid, the Pocket 3 Plus, and he was showing off this thing emulating retro games like Game Boy Advance, PSP. This thing could even handle a few GameCube games and PS2 games, but mainly just up to PSP. Now, I've been playing on handhelds since the original Game Boy, and this stirred up a lot of nostalgia inside me. I wasn't really unhappy with my Xbox or my Switch, just kind of blase. Besides Game Pass, I felt like I had already played all the Switch games I wanted to. Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, those were peak for me. I really only play the Nintendo games from the big three, Zelda, 3D Mario, and Metroid. Doom 2016 and Skyrim, those were like the exceptions when it came to third-party games on the Switch, and I had a lot of fun with indie games like Hollow Knight and Hades, but man, that Nintendo Online service, it was shitty. They just drip feed you these poorly emulated legacy titles, and it's insulting. And outside of the cookie cutter spin-off games and remasters of games that I had already bought and played on older Nintendo consoles, the Switch just didn't have much to offer me anymore. I ended up jumping back on my Xbox Series S to play Elden Ring. I had been really excited for it at the time. To play an open world Dark Souls game? Yeah, I was hype. But it ran like absolute trash. The audio was all messed up and the frame rate made it impossible for me to play. I ended up buying a Series S for under like $300, and holy shit, the difference was night and day. It was around the time I started getting into Game Pass, and you would think that having instant access to a giant library of games would make me happy, but it ended up having the exact opposite effect. I would just sit there in front of a sea full of games with choice paralysis, never really committing to a game. Instead of the new blockbuster, Game Pass just felt like a backlog simulator. The only game I ever played through entirely on Game Pass was Hi-Fi Rush. I straight up got milked through that subscription service. And it's not like I don't think it's a good deal or anything. I've praised it quite a few times. I still think it's better than outright buying games, but something was still missing. Gaming became stale for me, and I thought about just giving up the hobby altogether. Like I was wasting my money trying to chase that high from the early mid to late 2000s. So I'm watching this guy testing out GBA and PSP games on this Retroid thing, and I pull the trigger, I order one. My experience with this thing, it was a wake-up call. I spent hundreds of hours playing retro games on that thing. And yeah, a lot of it had to do with nostalgia, but it also had to do with the device itself. Something that had a domino effect on me. It was completely unrestricted. I could tinker with it, use custom front ends and all that. It had something that I wasn't getting from console, and that was ownership. On console, I had to pay for my own internet. I was always forced to update or I wouldn't have access to online. If a game ran like dog shit, well, that was it. There was nothing I could do about it. And worst of all, and this is the reason why I bought that Retroid device, I could straight up lose the games I bought, abandon on older hardware. Nintendo, they shut down the 3DS store, and Xbox, they have pretty good backwards compatibility, but literally every new generation, I always feel like I'm leaving something behind. I loved my little Retroid Pocket. It wasn't the most powerful handheld, but all those old games that I thought I'd never be able to play again, I could return to and experience them on modern hardware. If I was ever going to buy a new console again, I'd want to have that same level of freedom to be able to take everything with me. Those games from when I was a kid and into my teens, they hold sentimental value to me. It is criminal that I can't play every single Zelda game on the Switch. This was around the time rumors about the possible remasters for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess coming to Switch were making their rounds. It was also around the time Valve's new handheld was picking up steam, and that's my one shitty pun for the video. Man, everyone was talking about this thing, including Russ, and guess what games they were playing on it? Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, along with every other GameCube game and PS2 game and Dreamcast game, Game Boy Advance. This thing was and still is the king of emulation. And EmuDeck? It made the process brain dead easy, along with being able to play AAA games on the go. The Steam Deck playing Elden Ring was like what Breath of the Wild was to the Switch. It felt like the future. One of my coworkers on lunch break one day brought in his new Steam Deck OLED, and he was playing Half-Life 2 on it. I was like, holy shit, is that the Steam Deck? It is way bigger than it looked like in videos. He ended up letting me play Half-Life 2 on it for a few minutes, and keep in mind that I was used to the Switch's form factor. Even the Retroid had that Switch Lite feel to it. I am not exaggerating when I say the Steam Deck is the most comfortable controller I have ever held in my hands. It was like the Wii U gamepad and an Xbox controller had a baby. The way the Steam Deck curves into the handles on the back and how your thumbs perfectly rest on the sticks, even the weight of it. I've spent a lot of years working in construction, and it's like when you get a really good framing hammer. You know, like the 15 ounce, but it drives like a 28. Those cheap hammers, they'll give your ass arthritis. The Nintendo Switch, it's way lighter than the Steam Deck, but the weight of the deck, it sits in your palms. Even when you tilt it back and forth, the weight stays in your palms. If you hold the Switch and tilt it back and forth, you'll notice it feels slightly top heavy. I mean, everything about the Switch. You can't hold this thing for 5 minutes without getting cramps. The Steam Deck, on the other hand, I can play this thing for hours without having to put it down and shake the numbness out of my hands. The first thing I did with the Steam Deck is I installed EmuDeck, and I could have cared less about playing Insomniac's Marvel Spider-Man. I was booting up motherfucking Ultimate Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, the movie tie-in, Spider-Man 2000 for the PS1. I was playing Need for Speed Underground 1 and 2, Midnight Club 3, Most Wanted, God of War, and the two games that Nintendo blue-balled the hell out of us with, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. And this isn't just my retro emulation device, this is my main gaming device. I'm just wrapping up on Expedition 33, and I've been playing it like almost exclusively on the Steam Deck. This is an Unreal Engine 5 game with insane graphics, and I'm not streaming it from my main PC or playing it on the lowest settings. I don't even mess with the settings. I just boot this game up and start playing it as if I was playing it on console. I rarely have to sit there and just tweak settings. I played maybe an hour or two on my PC with the graphics maxed out, and the only noticeable difference that I can think of is shadow quality looks better. When people say the Steam Deck can't run these types of games, I just laugh and continue to play those same games. Whenever I hear PC is too expensive, listen, they sell the LCD Steam Deck for $400. The price to performance is unmatched. You could throw this thing on a monitor, get yourself a keyboard and mouse, and straight up, it's a full PC experience. I've had this thing for 2.5 years, and I still think it's the best gaming device of 2025, 26, 27, it doesn't matter. This thing is more than just FOMO for the next big thing. You have tens of thousands of games, new and old, constant sales, and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. It's completely unrestricted. Hell, I could just talk about Steam input and that would be a full video in itself. Leaving console was the best decision, and I really think you should too. It doesn't even have to be a Steam Deck, it could be a little $45 Anbernic device or a laptop or whatever. Once you experience that freedom, it's the most red-pilled shit ever. I'm done feeling restricted, feeling ripped off, feeling tied to a company and its closed-off ecosystem. Always feeling like I'm leaving something behind. Screw the Switch 2 and whatever Sony and Xbox are doing, because this isn't 20 years ago. They don't serve us anymore. They serve the shareholders. They serve themselves. But this Steam Deck, this PC, these are mine. They're completely mine to do whatever I want with. Just like those consoles and that physical media back in the day. I realized why I couldn't enjoy gaming the same way, and that's because I didn't have a sense of ownership. You can't own nothing and be happy. And guess what? For anybody that says I don't own anything on stuff like Steam and, look, the Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, there's a reason why I brought those games up a few times. I do own those games. It doesn't matter how I obtain them or what your moral values are. I still own those games. And that's the cool thing about being a PC guy.